experience is the experiment.
Today's guest is an alt-pop artist who hails from Fresno, California. He has not only found success with music, but he has modeled for some of today's biggest brands. Please welcome today's guest, Haiden.
Wow, it's interesting. Interesting list of accolades that have
That's
been chosen.
I was looking up just like bios and different write-ups on you.
Yeah.
And I'm obsessed with people that have the discipline to be really good at multiple arts.
For sure.
I love it. I'm obsessed.
Me being my self-deprecating self, I could never claim to have been a good model. I was the one that refused to cut my hair when they wanted me to. I was like plucked off the streets at 17, basically. They loved me because I was the new kid on the block, but I was definitely not good at it. But it made me get comfortable being on camera and doing all of that stuff, you know.
And like, if you can get past the part of that industry that is controlling in a way that it's not upfront controlling, like trying to feel like you're staying with the flow of the industry.
For sure.
If you can kind of sway away from that and still find yourself working with the brands you did, that is a form of self-commitment and self-preservation that I don't think you can beat.
Yeah, totally. And it teaches you in any creative field about seasons. Like you'll have seasons of, great success, then you'll have seasons of absolutely nothing. And modeling, the only difference is it's based off of how you look. So I'm a blonde hair, blue-eyed person. So I'm going to be popular during the summer, most likely.
That's so
you get
interesting.
kind of typecast that way. And same with music. Like certain types of music are popular around certain times of the year, but more than anything, it's like you can go months without having whatever a moment is or something from social media or blah, blah, blah. And you can still keep releasing music and doing stuff. And then you'll get a big moment and that song will pay for the next 10 songs. And, the ebb and flow of that.
And it's understanding how to keep mentally okay during that ebb and flow.
So true.
Oh my gosh. You want to enjoy the highs, but you don't want to enjoy them. You don't want to count on them.
Yes. You don't want to count on them and learn to, see the positives and like the stillness of stuff. I'm constantly figuring that out. And it's like the number one topic that anybody, if you casually get coffee with a musician or any kind of person that is in a creative field, number one thing they talk about or go to is work-life balance, like how they're trying to figure stuff out. Everyone's trying to figure it out constantly, just 24/7. They could be in their 50s and they're like, God, my wife just got so mad at me last night because I stayed in the blah, blah, blah till 2 a.m. But you just can't interrupt the cycle.
And it can be when they're walking off a stage in front of 50,000 people who all think that they are the pinnacle of happiness.
For sure. Yeah.
And
or
it really...
in front of 40 people,
Exactly.
Just because you're elevated, you're like physically elevated above people. So it makes sense for them. I mean, they're looking up at you.
Yeah.
It makes sense for them to see you as somebody that has got it figured out. It's like, and social media does not help with that.
Well, and I think this industry it's like a dog whistle for people that have trouble staying in this horizontal line all the time. We go so outside of it. And because of that, we really rely on our ability to diary in real time to do this, which is
totally.
I mean, what's more honest than writing about shit that you don't want to relive?
No, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I've because I'm so new to it, I started writing songs like a couple years ago for the first time. I've recently gotten over the hump of doing what people want me to do or expect me to do. And honestly, it's been like the battle of my whole life. I grew up a kid that felt assimilating was the way that people would like you, and to be like widely accepted by a lot of people just means that you're not a super potent human.
Yes.
You don't have like you're not super yourself if everybody loves you and everybody accepts you. And so my music kind of has reflected that journey a little bit. In that I'm now figuring out and realizing the importance of coming to terms with who I am, and that's not necessarily going to be loved by everybody, but at the same time you can get affirmed in the idea that if you are so yourself, unapologetically so, other people around you feel inclined to be themselves, and that's a whole other thing. Like whether or not you guys mesh as people, if you found a way to be yourself authentically, you give everybody in the room the opportunity to do the same with themselves, and everyone's just like,
Yeah,
thank
it's
God
this
we can
weight
drop
lifted.
it. Yeah.
Well, and that's why I think people love LA is you'll never be the weirdest person in the room.
Right.
I promise 99% of the rooms in West Bloomfield, Michigan, I was the weird person.
Yeah, for sure.
And I also I liked that. I sat in that. That was this place.
your power.
Yeah, I got to be that person. It wasn't like I had to be. I understood
interesting.
that. And it came obviously in there was times when I assimilated and sitting in that uncomfort taught me why it was so important to be myself.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I feel like I'm both late to the game because this has not been something that I was born to do and blah, blah, blah. It's something that I kind of stumbled into. But I also, compared to the average person, people spend their whole lives figuring out who the hell they are.
Yeah.
And I'm 22, and now I've decided to make a career out of knowing who I am, or at least pretending to. And so I'm both late to the party, but also like wildly early in the grand scheme of things. And it wasn't until I went on tour and went to like other places besides LA, came out of the bubble for a second, where I realized that I was like, whoa, I'm actually so much earlier to like my life journey maybe than the average person is.
Yeah.
Despite being in a place surrounded by other people trying to do the same thing. In that bubble, I feel like I'm just late and constantly learning and the new kid.
Yeah. Well, it takes this understanding of your internal dichotomy to really be able to keep this life sustainable and consistent. Because, like, you could throw enough money at a song and have it blow up.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
But are you going to be able to keep making hits? Are you going to be able to sit inside of that space? Are you going to be able to handle the fact that you are writing for the purpose of staying somewhere versus telling something?
Yeah. And something I think about often too is like if you do have that kind of moment, this is like a little bit heady, but if you have that kind of moment, that moment can surpass you and you can no longer be attached to it as well. And so it's not even about just following it up with like another one of those. I guess if you do it enough times, your name will be attached to a collection of things, which, your name will get mentioned more and blah, blah, blah. But the more authentic way to have your name attached to it is to just like have that moment while being yourself, as opposed to like having a moment for a thing that is not real, was never really you to begin with.
Yeah.
Because then it's hard to surround it with the day-to-day of this for people that might not know is if you post a thing and that thing is really widely received and really widely loved, and you don't surround it with other pieces of content or other versions of yourself on the internet of you not being this like universally acceptable blah blah blah, then the only thing they see you as is this individual moment and this universally accepted alien that is like not really a human. And I struggled with that, and I'm getting better at it, but it's a constant struggle of like, yes, you're going to get numbers, you're going to get like people excited about your blah 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 if you are digestible, but they're not accepting you as a person. They're not going to come around for the next thing because they don't care about you as a person. They care about this moment that you created in this song. And it's like, that's completely separate than you.
Yeah.
And it's a weird balance.
Well, it's like, it's what this whole social media world is now built around. And one thing that I talk about a lot on this podcast, and I'm sorry if I've talked about this too much, but I believe in it. And I believe in first jobs. I believe everybody deserves to have their first jobs. And those jobs, no matter what they are, help define the circumstances that you build into this creative endeavor. And like whether that's a kid who blows up on TikTok for being, doing stupid little skits or pranks and realizes that music is their passion. So many people don't allow them because now they are not the product. The videos are. They are
absolutely.
they just happen to be the person putting them out.
Absolutely.
And people
Anybody
don't
can
let
do
you
it.
move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sucks when that stuff replaces the whole reason why you did it to begin with. Like the whole point of making videos is not because you love being judged in a comment section. It's because you want people to listen to your music and like what you make. And when it's hard not to be more of a content creator than a musician nowadays, because it's like, who's going to listen to your stuff if you don't get them to? And the only way to get them to is not just by dropping a ton of it on Spotify. They're not going to help with that. It's dog eat dog out there. So it's essentially begging people for attention in creative ways and marketing to them without almost tricking them into listening to your stuff, which was the only way that I found that I was able to do it.
Well, it's like if I was the greatest painter and I put up a picture in the best museum that I painted, but I put a white piece of paper over it,
Yeah.
then all I have is a frame, like
Right,
it's
right.
sitting there.
Yeah.
The greatest piece of art that you've ever seen is in front of you.
Right.
You just can't yet see it. So our job now as musicians, as producers, as writers, whatever it is, you have to go find the people that are the most likely to want this and find it useful, and then find a way to get in front of their face.
Right.
And it's the weirdest thing, but it also, maybe it's going to force people to really find an internal work. I don't even know the right word for it. A work ethic.
Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
surpasses anything. Because now you have to be smart.
Yeah.
You have to be business smart. You have to watch your back. You have to do
Yes.
all these things. But now we also have some kid sitting in Anchorage, Alaska, could be the biggest artist tomorrow.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's a lot to say about that. I feel like, especially the hard work thing, for me as a person, I've talked about this with a couple of my friends, is I feel like my hard work to talent ratio greatly skews towards hard work. I'm not necessarily like a super talented person. I didn't go to Grammy camp as a kid. I wasn't writing songs when I was 5 years old. I just came into a thing that felt like it was mine and only mine. And prior to that, I was living a life that was purely for other people. I was studying aerospace engineering and planning on interning at SpaceX and doing all these things because it was like, that's what sounded impressive on paper,
And if you love it, it is.
And if you love it, it is. And I didn't.
Yeah.
And I got so far into it that I hit a dead end and was like, holy crap, it doesn't matter how much I do here. I'm just not going to give a shit about it. It doesn't matter to me. And a lot of people can do that. But I was born with this inherent belief that I had another option. And that other option was to just find something that was mine. And it was just picking up a guitar. But I wasn't necessarily good at it.
You're so interesting. You have, because the way you talk about it is so similar to people I know that don't yet have talent, and that's something they have to work for.
Right.
As if, like you're looking at it from such a human perspective, but like knowing your music and being a fan of your music, your voice is insane.
Thank you so much.
Like the talent is there, but the way you look at it, how you're kind of looking past that, to me is, that's why I do this podcast. I'm obsessed with people that are obsessed.
Yes.
I'm obsessed with people that no matter where you put them, they're going to find a way to do really well, but they're going to find a way to do it. Like, it's like, go get the biggest drug cartel. You go find the head dude.
Yeah.
If he was, grew up in middle of Wisconsin under his parents' bank, either way, he was going to make a shit ton of money.
For sure.
And because there's this internal kind of
Absolutely.
gas.
Yeah.
That just keeps getting fed.
I don't know where that comes from. For some reason, I was looking around me as a kid and thinking, I can do better. I can do better than this. I grew up in an area where I was like the only white looking kid. My last name is originally Lopez. I'm Mexican. Don't look it. And was in an area where like drug trafficking and gang violence and stuff was just part of the norm. Some of my friends growing up were on the show Beyond Scared Straight, which for people that don't know is the show where delinquent kids, quote unquote, get taken to a prison and get scared into shape.
The craziest fucking show in the world.
Craziest show in the world, and the most like 2008 thing you can possibly imagine.
It was fun to watch.
It was so fun to watch, and the show was started at my hometown, and there was the premiere episode, and they did it because of my hometown. And so, but I grew up in that environment, knowing those people and blah blah blah, and I was like, I can do better. I can do better. I don't know why, and just like it's a selfishness, it's a narcissism, but it's a determination and a stubbornness to just like this isn't me. So I was sort of assimilating, maybe even dissociating unintentionally or subconsciously through the first 18 years of my life until I came into being a human not too long ago. And that thing that sparked that humanity was just like making a choice for myself and for nobody else for the first time. And so I see all of those previous things from that third person point of view because of that, I think. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the way that I think our generation grew up is a lot like politics. People expect you to be one or the other at all times. You have no room to just think for yourself outside of borders.
Yeah.
You're either growing up, you're either wearing Nikes and playing sports and you are this person, or you are so far out that nobody understands you and people expect you to be one or the other.
Yeah.
They don't expect you to have this option where you can swerve and figure out, oh, right here feels great, but right here feels great. How do I find this middle ground? Like,
Absolutely.
being extreme is great if you are extreme.
Yeah.
Being
Yeah,
extreme because you feel like you have to push the boundary, even if it's not you,
sure.
is
It's just inauthentic.
it's one of the steps.
Yeah.
You have to go through that, but like your confidence in understanding that that ebbing and flowing enough, you're eventually going to hit all the points. You're going to get the information you need. You're going to filter it through the head that you've been building over all these years. You're going to throw out what you don't need. You're going to keep what you decide is your favorite versions of you. And
for sure,
that's what this process is. It's just you're storing all these pieces, all these data pieces in your brain, and you have to get rid of some as you go. You can't be the same person you were 5 years ago. No,
totally. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I really had to forge who I am. There was no natural. I was the kid that was good at a lot of things, but not really great at anything. So anything I wanted to really do, I had to apply myself. I wasn't like. I was naturally good at music to a very certain extent, to the extent where I understood what a C major chord was, and like I can play my favorite Ed Sheeran songs when I was younger, but I didn't start playing guitar in a way that was exercising until my first year of college was when I started just playing guitar only. And it was just a fucking lot of Am I allowed to cuss on that?
Oh yeah.
Oh hell yeah. It was just a lot of repetition and a lot of figuring it out. Same with singing. It's like I just sang so much constantly and like annoyed the shit out of my mom and my friends. I don't know why I said friends. I didn't really have many people around. I was just in my first year of college. I lived in my car to save money before moving to LA, and I moved to LA for school with aerospace engineering. So I started playing guitar in the back of my truck at night, essentially, and then going to class in the morning, and figured it out through that process. Had to stop playing guitar because I had some medical issues with my hands. Couldn't really play as much as I wanted to, and I would wake up in the morning and my hands would be like frozen shut. So I started writing songs to fill that void,
We can cut this if you want, but would you mind? Was it like an arthritis, something like that?
Yeah, so it was a form of tendonitis, sort of. It's called trigger finger, and
isn't that when like your fingers don't go back all the way?
Yeah, so they don't go back. In my case, I had surgery when I was younger. I have scars on both of my middle fingers. My fists my hands were frozen into fists when I was younger. Had to have surgery to essentially like cut up the tendons in there so that they could properly slide through my hand. It's very visceral. And through playing guitar like 6 hours a day, my hands would get inflamed internally, and they would freeze, and then I'd wake up in the morning and thought I was paralyzed. And so I'd ice them and then pry them open and all that stuff.
So you lived in your car while you were at school?
Yeah, I got into USC in LA for engineering for aerospace. Out of high school, deferred for my first year, went to community college, lived in my car, continued modeling, worked a couple or saved money to move to LA, mostly out of kind of the desire to be independent, I think, and wanting to come out here and just owing nothing to anybody. I had a ton of student loans at the time as well, so I was living off of those partially. Came out here, played guitar on the side, skipped a lot of class because guitar playing was so much more interesting. Totally. And it was the first thing that I had done for myself. And started taking small gigs as like a session player, and began writing songs on the side. Bumped into my producer, and we started working on stuff during the pandemic.
What was high school like for you? If you were to be...
I love asking about high school. High school is such a telling time.
It's so telling, but also like to be an aerospace engineer, you have to be fucking smart. But then also to have normally somebody who's going to be an aerospace engineer isn't also a model or a very creative in that sense. You just don't, maybe I just haven't seen it, but like, it's what an interesting sort of path to diverge to.
Yeah, a lot of weird ingredients. I think once again, I was good at like a lot of things, and I didn't have to apply myself too much in high school. I don't think it was out of a smartness. I think it was out of just like I found ways to hack the system. I was like, I don't really need to study if I remember blah, blah, blah. And also having a good memory is very advantageous in those kind of fields. And so I had a good enough memory to where I didn't really need to study, didn't have to go to class, and I would pass my classes and do fine. In high school,
That sounds like smart though. To me, that's if you can understand your strengths and use them.
yeah, okay.
At the end of the day,
in that way, sure.
if you get it done better than the person next to you who studied a lot, who's to say that you're not smarter?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I guess, once again, my self-deprecating side won't allow me to have that win. But I did okay, or I did good in classes. I finished with like a 4.8 GPA and was doing fine in that stuff. I played a lot of sports and stuff as well. I was just an attention whore. So I was like, anything I could do to sound impressive, I was doing.
Do you play basketball?
No, actually, everyone asks that because I'm tall, but
How tall are you?
I'm 6'5",
Goddamn.
but I'm wearing chunky shoes right now, so I'm probably like 6'7" with these on.
I got some chunkies too, and I'm not. I'd probably just hit
Those
6
are
foot.
so cool. Those are
Aldi.
super cool.
They're my favorite. I go hiking in them.
No way.
Yeah, they're my
wow.
everything shoe. I love them.
Dude, Doc Martens are not meant for hiking. These things weigh like 4 pounds
Dude,
each.
my Doc Martens come out once every few months, and I regret it, but they look so dope.
They look so cool. Yeah, I was playing sports, finished with a good GPA, got signed to a modeling agency this summer, my junior year of high school. I had a group of friends in high school that I got along with well on a day-to-day. I didn't feel like I really related to the things that they liked. They were like the rowdy, rambunctious types. We experimented with drugs and stuff in high school. I was always the sort of like cautious friend, making sure that everyone was good. And we had a lot of fun together, but after high school, I found it hard to extend myself to like reach out and stuff just because it was never worth it. I felt like I was code switching around my friends in high school and having to be somebody else. So when I got into college, I was also the only person from my school to get into USC. So I got in there, didn't have anybody that I knew at USC. So it was really a fresh start.
Did that feel like a win that you got in, or did that kind of feel like you were separating yourself from all these people?
It wasn't intentional. Everybody, like the large majority of my class applied to USC, so I figured some people were going to get in and that I would have people there, but then nobody did. And so I was like, well, guess I'm doing this on my own. And I had softened that blow with living in my car and doing community college for 1 year. So it wasn't a super big shell shock, but USC was just the most impressive school that I felt was attainable for me. And so that's why I wanted to apply there. I wanted to go there. It was just the idea of, once again, just being impressive and being cool. And my mom never went to college. My bio dad's not in the picture. He definitely didn't go to college. And so I was the first generation college kid. And so I wanted to just make it impressive, make it cool. And I think prove to myself too that I was valuable. All this is also like attention seeking is just insecurity talking and like me trying to prove that I am worth something.
It's also, it's honesty. It's having a form of confidence that you can tell your story without feeling you need to be right or wrong.
Sort of, or I think that's the more like developed, mature thing. I'm hoping to get there, but initially it's very much so like fear of perception in a way. Like I'm worried about being judged, but I like, if I'm not being judged, then I don't feel seen, and if I don't feel seen, then I don't feel like a human.
Man, I understand that in such a palpable way.
Yeah. It's a very creative thing, and that's why it's so cool. I mean, you can relate being a producer. You come into contact with people that have different versions of the same story and these same feelings. And I love that because in engineering, everyone's just fighting for their lives. Like all they cared about was their chem exam or the formulas they were having to memorize for calc class. And it was like, yes, there is an end goal there and we are all here for a reason, but there wasn't much community in that.
Yeah.
And coming into a creative space, I mean, I literally shed a tear the first time I went into a songwriting class at school, and I didn't learn anything in that class, but it was just so cool to be surrounded by a bunch of weirdos. And I was like, these are all people that didn't feel like they fit in at some point. Yeah. And for all of us to be in a room together, that island of misfit toys felt so homey to me, you know?
Yeah, there's this weird sort of energy that is very obvious to us and very tough to see to the outside world, if you will. Outside world.
The outside.
There's a lot of
I
us.
like calling people that don't do music civilians. I
Civilians.
think that's funny.
the mainlanders.
Yeah.
We're out in Kauai. There's this. I don't even know how to explain it. What you were talking about a minute ago, where it was either too hot or too cold. You wanted to be the one people stared at, but you didn't want them to stare at you.
Dude, it's such a weird feeling to describe, and it's such a weird feeling to feel too, because you're conflicted as fuck. You're like, why when someone else is in the spotlight do I feel jealous of them, and why when it's on me do I like retract into my shell?
And then also why am I so proud and excited for my friends when they get there? And why does it hurt me so badly when the person that I don't want to win gets there?
For sure. And even just seeing daily the people you follow on social media winning, it's not even that it's not even that you don't want them to have it. It's just that you wish you felt that special as well.
Yeah.
But then when you get those moments, you don't feel very special.
No.
I heard a kid on TikTok describe recently. He's like, oh, what does it feel to, have all these views for the first time for my music? And he's like, honestly, not that cool. It feels like a video game. And he's like, I don't mean to say that to be ungrateful, but when you don't have videos do well, or people don't receive your music in the right way, or on like a day-to-day civilian level, you say something that someone doesn't relate to, it feels like shit.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself out there and you get rejected. But then when somebody does, in the case of music and view count and all of these things, when you do get accepted and you do get those numbers, it doesn't feel the same level of intensity the other way. You're not equally as happy as you were sad when you failed.
100%.
And so you just have this net negative thing that's not super sustainable and doesn't feel good.
You don't have these glasses in front of you where you can compare them. You're only looking. We have blinders.
Absolutely.
We only see what we see at that moment. And that's why I'm a really big fan of sustainability. And part of sustainability in this environment that we live in is finding ways to remind yourself that you're proud of yourself. Find your ways to remind yourself that you haven't yet made it and that you still need to learn. Yeah. And that is the reason you're here is because you love it so much that you want to be better than you were yesterday. And that's the best way to go about, I think.
Yeah. And the shortcut to that for me, because that's not within me to celebrate myself, it's difficult. And so it's surrounding yourself with people that remind you.
Yeah.
It's huge. And like I've never had a friend for longer than like 2 or 3 years in my life, because I moved around a lot as a kid. Yeah. And those friendships became disposable. And now, although my friends are still pretty new to me, I have this shared common like perspective on the world that is artistry and that is insecurity and all these things. And so we keep each other in check. Like, no, this is a big fucking deal. Put your phone down, sit down and sit in this with me. It's a huge deal.
It's stuff's allowed to hurt. Stuff's allowed to feel good. You're allowed to have these extended feelings that are more than just regular life's reactions will kind of bring.
Right. And you don't always need to put words to them. That's my problem. Absolutely. Is I love defining. I love connecting dots. I love figuring out where things came from. I love making conversations weaving and interesting. And I love dazzling people and dazzling myself as a form of control. Like I just need control over every situation that I'm in. And same with emotions. Like if I write songs to compartmentalize my feelings, but that's just a Band-Aid over it. That's not actually fixing it. It's just indexing it.
I'm very intrigued by people that moved a lot as a kid. Yeah. Because you have to build a sort of resilience to make it okay. My girlfriend Elle, I will put this on here, is the best songwriter I know.
That's awesome.
By far.
So
she
cool.
is fucking insane.
That's so
And
cool.
I think part of her ability to digest emotions comes from she moved every few years. She had to make new friends. She was in a new state. It was all because of shitty reasons too. It was never built on like, oh, my dad got a promotion. It was like somebody's sick, somebody's this. And you learn how to have thick skin, but you also learn it gives you time to weave through information. Retrospect is the killer of all bullshit.
Right.
And when you move every 2 years, retrospect is common because you're always somewhere new, so you can always look back.
You're always having to zoom out.
I didn't have that. I was the same place my whole childhood, and that's very lucky, and I'm very happy about it.
I'm fascinated by that on the other side of the fence. It's very that's super interesting. I'm always, you meet a lot of people in music and in life that have been doing the thing their whole life, and they've just felt like they were destined to do this. I'm like, how does that feel? It's so
And it's always grass is greener sort of thing too.
No, it's grass is greener. Absolutely.
I grew up in the same place my whole life, with the same friends.
Yeah.
Not one single friend who made music or knew anything about it.
Yeah.
I was always the kid who dressed different or the kid who tried too hard to fit in.
Yeah.
Because I swayed too far outside and I got
I
lost.
relate so hard.
But with that there's a weird, you have the comfort of understanding what tomorrow is going to bring.
Right.
But you have you live with a scarcity of opportunities to restart. I never got to be the new person. I always had to have this really slow, like, do I want to wear fucking flares and feel the way I want to feel? Yeah, but I got to start with one ring today.
That'll happen. Yeah, exactly.
2 weeks later, I'll put on another ring.
Yeah.
Then I'll throw on some necklaces. Then I'll tie dye my shirt.
That's what I was going to bring up for sure. It's like grass is greener, but if you want to escape who you are and you want to change, you have so many eyes on you.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
I have friends. I have a friend who was on this podcast she was an actress. She did very, very, very well as an actress. Gained a stupid social media following. But while she was an actress, before she was an actress, she was a singer. She was an artist.
Wow. Okay.
She was that the whole time. Things just got swayed because you do well in one thing, you fall towards
You get
it.
notes. Yeah.
Trip to make the fall shorter. You kind of lean into it. That's a Chance the Rapper lyric.
That's a cool lyric.
I love it. I've been wanting to steal it forever, but I can't do that because it's Chance the Rapper.
Just bring it into conversations on the daily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the things she told me that sticks with me every day, and it really kind of brought up this idea in my head of like people allowing people to have their first job, is she goes, everybody thinks that, and this is paraphrased, everybody thinks that because I have this following and this success that it's going to be really easy and kind of cocky to switch to do music. She goes, try being new at something in front of 30 million people.
That's 100%.
And I mean 30 million people. Like that's
nuts.
That takes a strength that I could never imagine.
Yeah.
And I understand it because I never got to be a new person. I always got ridiculed for making the next step into my evolution of who I am, which is now a very
That's so interesting.
confident person in the fact that I know I'm weird. I'm proud of being
What's
weird.
the through thread for you? Like, who have you been this whole time, unwaveringly? Not necessarily like a character or blah, 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 but like what parts of your personality have remained the same?
Music. The music aspect of it. I've played in every talent show. I drummed. People knew me as either a drummer or a DJ.
Yeah.
And that was it. I mean, people would call me, my name growing up was DJ Blink.
That's so sick.
Everybody would call me Blink. Like, that's so
cool.
what when I see somebody I haven't seen in 8 years, it's like, hey, Blink.
Oh,
like
that's so funny.
That's just who I was, but.
Is that your producer name?
No. I go by Loverboy.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait, yeah. That's so cool.
But
dude, DJ Blink goes crazy though.
Well,
you
so
should get a tattoo that says Blink or something.
I'm definitely going to.
That's so
I got a
sick.
whole bunch of tattoos.
That's so
we'll
cool.
Get there. But I grew up. I have this disease in my eyes called convergence disorder.
Oh, interesting.
And I believe that everybody's given opportunities to suffer, so they have the ability to appreciate what is beautiful.
For sure. If that's what they choose to do with that.
Exactly.
It's a kind of a test.
And so I grew up with this disease called convergence disorder, where my eyes don't work together. They don't fuse. So your fusion should be at 80 to 100. I don't really know what the units are.
Yeah.
But pretty much when you're forming an image, your eyes work together to go from
create it.
From two images to one specific, to a stereo image.
Yeah.
My eyes take about like 8 seconds to work together.
Interesting.
So like if I'm looking at my hand and then I want to focus to my hand back here, it's going to take me a while.
Okay, wow.
So my brain's reaction is to blink. It's to reset.
Sure. Okay.
So growing up, I was like, it's kind of hard to see, but I was like this growing up.
No way.
Like there was days where I couldn't drive. I couldn't, and people not on purpose, they copy it, they make fun of it. It's just, you're a fucking kid. You don't know what you're doing.
100%.
And I don't know what they're doing either. If I could look back now with retrospect, I'd be like, oh, they don't know what the fuck they're...
No, for sure.
Everybody's got a...
But when you're younger, you feel like an alien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So DJ Blink, I sat into it and I called myself Blink and I was like, I might as well tell everybody before they find out.
Absolutely. There's I watched Pitch Perfect like a week ago just to
great movies.
See that movie, and she said and the I forget the actress's name, but she her name is in the movie is Fat Amy. And they're like, what,
Yeah.
you call yourself Fat Amy? He's like, yeah, so twig bitches like you don't get to it
Yeah.
first. I'm like, that is so
She's
relatable, dude.
one of the sickest actresses too. I can't remember her
So
name.
good, so good.
Can I pour you a drink, by the way? Do you want something?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Tequila or whiskey? That's what I got.
Whiskey. Let's do whiskey.
Sweet.
That's so crazy though. What a fun. I really wanted a nickname growing up, and Haiden is my first name. And
Hayden's a sick name, though.
I've grown to appreciate it, especially in its sort of androgyny. Just because I've like grew up not really, or I mean like being decently masculine, but always feeling weird in it. Like I played sports, but I would cry when I lost, but not because I lost like against the other team, but it was because I let myself down, which is a much less masculine, or maybe it is a very masculine feeling, but I just never felt right being like the sports guy. And I felt in some ways more comfortable being a model and being, thank you so much. I feel like as a man growing up, society teaches you to just like shut up and take it.
Yeah.
And when you're like a little more flamboyant and an attention whore and stuff, that's quite the opposite of what society wants you to do, you know?
Oh, I
Look
get
at
it.
You
I'm
get it.
wearing literally the brightest thing you
Absolutely.
can find.
Yeah. And that's why I complimented it, because it's so cool.
But that is also, there's a camaraderie in people like that. And I think that's the reason I get along with so many musicians is we're a bunch of people who, whether it's feminine or masculine, have this weird sway
Yeah.
where we understand that me being a man has nothing to do with the way I dress. Me being a man has nothing to do with playing sports or doing any of that.
Yeah.
It has to do with the way I present myself to the world. It has to do with the way I treat people.
Yeah.
And
I like to think of it as colors. It's just a color palette.
Exactly.
Like you really limit yourself to like beiges and grays if you decide to be exactly what other people want you to be. And if you want to be whatever, like just use whatever colors you want. You know, it doesn't matter when it comes to dressing, how you talk, what content you like to consume.
yeah.
Use as many colors as you want.
Well, it's also we're finally in a day of age where, like when we were growing up, and I'm a bit older than you, not a lot, but probably I'm 27.
Okay,
so
cool. Yeah,
when
yeah.
I was a kid, I mean, the things people would say to me, the kids who were gay didn't get told
Right.
because you couldn't say it to them because they were gay and you were an asshole. But
Yeah.
you could say it to the kid who you wanted to use it as a slur.
Right. That's so
Like
interesting.
the amount of times I was called a fag.
yeah.
Which now, like kids don't. That's out. Like
out.
you're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But like back then, it was so widely used, and that's who I was to people.
sure.
And
For
to
sure.
them, it was like you were that is a that I'm not. That was not them trying to be my friend.
Right.
But like to me, it was this weird dichotomy of, which I use that word a lot, but it was this weird feeling of like, first of all, I know who I am. I'm proud of who I am. My parents know who I am. I'm a good person.
Right.
That's who I am. And also, I had 3 gay cousins who I was like, if I could be them, I would be in a second. They're the coolest
Totally.
fucking people in the world.
Totally.
And
And,
it was-
you know them as people.
Exactly.
You know, not as a stereotype of one, not as blah, blah, blah. Like, if you ever hate a group of people, I just pray to God that you're, like, if everyone was related to somebody that was ostracized in any capacity, they would have a lot more sympathy for that person.
Hopefully.
You know, you would hope. I mean, and I would wager that 90% of people would be swayed.
It's like how I feel about, like, I wish everybody in the world would go do mushrooms and realize that
Sure.
they can have 8 hours of not hating themselves and loving themselves and everybody
For sure.
around them. But some people are they want to be something specific so bad that they will never let honesty seep in. They will never become a person that they can be proud of because they need to be somebody that they're keeping up with.
For sure. And see, I praise the grass is greener paradox. I praise you for being called slurs, for being yourself, and whether or not it was just that you didn't know any other version of yourself or you didn't give a fuck enough to try to be somebody else. Like, I was such a whatever you want me to be, I'll be. I was such a people pleaser. I was just like, I had a different personality at every school that I went to, basically, because different things worked in different social situations. And for that reason, I've gone the large majority of my life not knowing what it was I wanted. I'm a serial monogamist, and I think it's just because I've always been dependent on having other people around me to know who I was.
Yeah.
It's like I needed to be surrounded by mirrors in order to form whatever image was being reflected back. And this is the first time since I've started dating that I've been single for an extended period of time, and all these things are rushing in, all these memories and realizations of, wow, not only am I an artist, which means I need to figure this out, otherwise I likely will not have a career in it, but also all of these things that seemed harmless, a first love, a second love, a third love, all long-term relationships, were just my fear to figure out the things that were happening with me. You know?
have to take the steps up that ladder to hit the top rung. Like,
No, for sure.
that's the thing, is like, you have to be a serial this, you have to be really shitty at that. You
have to practice in excess in order to find balance.
Exactly. Everything takes 10,000 hours.
For sure.
And once you hit 10,000 hours, what you should realize is that you're excited to get another 10,000.
Yeah, absolutely.
In whatever
that's interesting. Yeah, there's mastery on pretty much everything in life, and it's going to all take that 10,000.
And I don't believe that 10,000 hours makes you a master. I believe it makes you understand that you will never learn everything, and that's the best part.
You'll never be a master.
Yeah.
It takes 10,000 hours to realize you will not learn it all.
And that's amazing. And like,
yeah.
I've been with my girlfriend for 7 years. And the thing that I realized from it is I found somebody who won't let me wallow in my shit and won't let me be uncomfortable in my own skin, because she'll call me out on it right away and go, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah.
I know you.
Yeah,
I've been with you 7 years. There's nothing you can hide.
That's fun. That's fun to have that anchor point, because when you can't trust yourself, you can trust them still.
And I'm also one of those people where if I didn't have a girlfriend, the amount of hours I spend working right now is disgusting.
Yeah.
The amount of hours I would spend working if I didn't have somebody else who relied on my love and where I rely on theirs.
Your presence, yeah.
I would work even more.
Yeah,
And not
totally.
in a healthy way. I already work in an unhealthy amount, but like, I tell everybody that I work that comes on here, the one thing that I've learned that I'm confident about is, for every minute you spend with your head down working, you better spend 2 minutes with your head up looking at how beautiful the world is around you.
For sure.
Because you have nothing to work on, nothing to write if you don't know what's around you.
Right. And that's why people, I think, rip on LA, is because when you look up, you're not reminded of how beautiful things are. You're reminded of the fact that everybody has their heads down.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's like, oh, okay, I'm back. You know, it's the same middle school mentality of like, oh, everyone likes this kind of music. I guess I'm listening to this now. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even fucking like blah, blah, blah. But
And that's
here I
part
am.
of it. You have to go through that shit to realize where you'd like to be. And then it gives you something to work towards. When you have something to work towards, nothing can get in your way.
For sure.
Because you have these blinders, but you understand what's important to keep those blinders on.
For sure.
To keep those blinders on, you also have to take them off sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that is the distillation of all of the meandering problems that I've had in my life. Like, I've always provided myself with a goal, so much so that I've not worried about what I was like without having a goal, without having drive. Like, all I have been was gas in an engine, but I didn't give a fuck about where I was going.
Yeah.
So I just had this like an insane amount of energy without a funnel to focus it into a thing. And so came out with, finally came up for air after a long time. And it was Tor that did that for me, or that forced me to come up for air. And came back and it felt like I found God or something. I was like, holy shit, this is great. I've connected with people that don't know anything about me, and I could bring them to tears with a song, a thing that I created. And prior to that event, I was just a kid with a phone in a bedroom with a guitar. Like, that was it. And basically playing a video game on the internet every day, which was, how many views can I get?
It makes
All that stuff.
It makes the troubles in life feel worth it.
For sure.
Feel like you were gaining experience that is necessary in order to get where you want to go.
It assigns purpose to all of the energy. Like, I've had all this energy.
Couldn't put that any better way.
I've had all this energy that was going towards nothing, essentially. I was just shooting it out. I was just a fireball of a human. And like, I was lighting everything on fire around me, including my relationships. I was just, everything, all of this drive was consuming everything, including the person that I should have been trying to figure out existed. And finally there was a purpose assigned to it. It's like, wow.
I couldn't put it any better way.
Yeah.
Man, I'm a big fan. I was a big fan of your music. Now I'm a big fan of you.
Awesome.
And
thank you. I appreciate that.
Your outlook on life and your ability to be a smart person who also is a very creative person, and use those and not leave one in the dust just because you have the other, is something that I look up to. And I hope there's
Thank you so much.
a fuck ton of kids out there right now, or not, or adults that are looking at this and understand that sometimes you got to sleep in your car to get where you want to go. Sometimes you gotta be going to school to be aerospace scientist, and then completely divert and understand that the biggest leaps you make in life will yield the biggest results.
100%.
But you have to believe in it. You have to work hard, and you have to be true with yourself. That's what it takes.
I love that. I mean, to riff off of that button, Everything Everywhere All at Once is a movie that came out in March of 2021.
We just talked about that on a few podcasts ago.
Oh, dude, it's like one of my favorite movies of all time. And the actor that plays the husband in that movie, for those that don't know, he did a fantastic job. He played Data in The Goonies. Just like the little Asian kid in The Goonies. And after that movie, he was also in Indiana Jones. He had started out with a Steven Spielberg movie and then the fucking Goonies. And after that movie, he didn't get cast for 30 years in a single project because people weren't looking for Asian male actors in his age range, blah, blah, blah. He's just so, like, glued to these things that he did. And finally, he gets cast in this indie film with a tiny budget called Everything Everywhere All at Once. And he wins a Golden Globe. And he's in his 30s or 40s now.
What a trip.
And he cries at every interview he does. He cries on every award show that he goes on because he's like, I thought my life was over. I thought this one thing, this childhood passion that I had and achieved so much in such a short amount of time was just gone. And I didn't have that childhood passion necessarily to begin with. The only thing that I cared about was feeling seen and feeling understood. And I was just chasing that through a million different doors. And to pick up a guitar at 19 after almost 20 years of searching behind doors and find it was like, whoa, this is a huge, huge deal. So if anybody can take away anything from anything, it's that, one, they should watch Everything Everywhere All at Once. And two, it's out there. Like, whatever it is, if you don't feel like you belong, it's out there. And this is the first time in life where you have the access to knowledge and stuff just through the internet to figure out what it is. Yeah. It's so easy.
Man, that makes me inspired. That makes me excited about everything that's coming for the next rest of my life. So
for sure.
Thank you for that. Thank you for opening those doors and for picking up that guitar and for giving people music that is going to help for a very, very long time.
Yeah. And thanks for having me and thanks for the whiskey.
Of course. Anytime. And real fast before we go, tell everybody what's coming out, what you're doing, your socials, all the above. Where can they find you?
All my socials currently are at by Haiden, BYHAIDEN, mostly just because everything that has my name on it, I've touched in some way. It's all by me in some capacity.
I like that a lot. I like by. I haven't heard anybody say by this person.
Weird. Some people think my artist name is by Haiden. They're like, I looked up by Haiden on Spotify and couldn't find it. I'm like, god damn it.
They'll figure it out. Eventually they'll all know.
They figured it out, thank God. But yeah, this is my socials. You will find me being more authentic than I have been in the past year and making music that reflects that journey. Just dropped a song a week and a half ago about that is a bridge from the bright, punchy pop rock stuff that I was making, sort of representing my immaturity and newness to this.
What's it called?
The new song is called Flight Attendant. And
just listened to that on my way home from work.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. I mean, within the first 4 seconds of the song, you can tell something is different. Like, I'm not the same kid that was making that last EP.
It's different than the song right above it, something X. Why am I blanking?
Sorry to Your Next X.
Yes.
Which is very different. Yeah, there's
phenomenal.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm a big fan and I love all the stuff that I've done previously, but I did all of that very much so to provide headroom for me to grow up and to be myself. And the music is heading in that direction. So I've got another project coming this year. Flight Attendant is a one-off. It's not going on the project, but it is acting as a bridge between the two.
I love it.
And that's me.
Well, I'm a big fan. Everybody go stream it up. Go tell your parents, tell your friends, let everybody know. I promise you will be impressed. You will be moved and you will be a fan. I'm a big fan. I appreciate you coming on here. You have an open invite. I am
so cool.
Would love to have you on anytime.
Let's do it again. Let's make it like
let's do it often.
Like a biannual something, like just checking in, like how are we doing now?
Let's do it. We'll get even more drunk next time. We'll have some fun. And I'm a huge fan of you. And thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for watching. And to everybody out there,
I'm Haiden and this is an experiment.
Hell yeah. Thank you, brother. Goodbye, everybody.
is the experiment.